Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with School Transportation News. Glad you made it to the podcast this week. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing. And we have a special tech tip this week from Synovia Solutions, a subsidiary of Calif. Also, a little later, I'll be talking with Dr. Richard Cooper and Roger McElwrath about cleaning your school buses properly. And they're from CleanSpray Technology. So excited for that conversation. We've also got some great interviews lined up. Ms. Taylor Hannon is going to be speaking with Chris Rinesmith and Sherry Barnes from Paradise Unified School District in Northern California. They have a very heroic story to share, which is great. And just in case you guys didn't know, you can stream and follow our podcast, School Transportation Nation, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stnpodcast.com. Be sure and share that with everybody in the transportation department. Get the word out about all the great content we're doing. And if you want to listen to the podcast, you're definitely going to get your fill of Mr. Ryan Gray. Ryan, welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Hello, everybody. I don't know if that's a good thing, getting their fill of me, but I try.
You're a fountain of knowledge.
I guess you could say that. Or I don't know, fountain of something. But yeah, it's great to be back. Always look forward to the podcast and catching up on what's going on around the industry.
Yeah, it could be the NCAA tournament because we've been talking a lot about that because that's us fun. I'm still rooting for San Diego State. You know, that's we'll see if they get out of the first round. I don't know.
Yeah, my Arizona Wildcats, the number one seed in the South. Of course, a lot of people are picking them. They're kind of the fashionable pick to go all the way. But we were talking before we started recording. That's the kiss of death, I feel, for us. It's whenever those expectations are that high. But it's certainly a great time of year. One of my favorite times of year. There's already been a couple of upsets. So we'll just see how that continues to go.
Well, you know what? The underdog these days is the school bus industry, right? We're always fighting for that driver, Ryan. I think there's a bit of a driver shortage, and we're getting some data. I know NSTA sent us a press release last week sharing some interesting information. You want to enlighten the audience?
Yeah, and I found it pretty interesting because, the driver shortage, it's nothing new, right? The industry deals with the driver shortage year in and year out. This past school year, though, has just been a perfect storm of COVID and supply chain shortages. Now we have these skyrocketing fuel costs that are tied to the war over in Ukraine. But certainly the driver shortage is still front of mind for so many people. And NSTA did come out with some results from a survey that they conducted the week of March 7th through the 14th. They partnered with our good friends at TransFinder, who happen to be as you said, the sponsor of this School Transportation Nation podcast each and every week. But they used their informatics solution to basically query NSTA members, so school bus contractors across the nation and in Canada, and came up with some interesting numbers. And I'll go through those real quickly. So at the top of the pack, 28% said 6 to 10% drop off in staffing of school bus drivers. Probably pretty close to what a lot of folks are experiencing at districts nationwide. Then another 26%, 11 to 15% drop off. So 54%, over half, have a pretty substantial, middling to moderate driver shortage. Then it's rounded off by 12% have a greater than 20% shortage. So those are the folks that are really hurting. And then 16% are 16 to 20% shortage, which, if my math is correct, that indicates that about a quarter of the responses indicated it's no driver shortage to 5%. So, at this recording, I was trying to clarify those numbers with NSTA, but I found it pretty interesting because, again, keeping it, let's keep a historic look here at the driver shortage. We're always people short. I don't know of many school districts that can say year in and year out they're fully staffed, and by that meaning they have ample amount of substitute drivers on hand, because a lot of folks might tell me, oh, we're actually doing pretty good. We're actually not short drivers, but they're talking about route drivers. And then they're quick to remind, oh, but if any of those call in sick, and they do, We know that like Mondays and Fridays are usually especially after payday, are sometimes the most frequent days that school bus drivers call off. So that is going to always be the case. There's always going to be a driver shortage. I don't know. I was being maybe a little hopeful in looking at these numbers, in that there was a lot more numbers that were kind of more between that 6 and 15% range instead of that greater than 20. So if that's maybe some silver lining to take away, I know certainly NSTA, the point of putting out that survey, I think, was to still shine light on the school bus driver shortage and the fact that the historic underfunding level of school transportation. But there's legislation in several states actually afoot right now that are looking to try to rectify that, at least in the short term. So, trying to be cautiously optimistic, Tony. This industry has persevered over so much over the past 2 years, and that's certainly the underlying theme, I think, of school transportation is perseverance. And so many times we hear, we roll with the punches, we make things happen, we react. It maybe not the best overall way to have to operate, but dang, they sure do a great job of maintaining that safety level, more or less. There's great school bus drivers out there that are well-intended transportation leaders that are doing this. They've made a career out of this because the love for children and for safety. So, some interesting numbers. I'm sure we'll see some more information come out on school bus driver shortages as we get a little bit closer to the end of the school year.
Excellent. Yeah, and I know we saw another headline. We've all been kind of waiting for the Clean School Bus program to kind of get announced. And I know we got an email saying March 23rd, 1 p.m. Eastern time, the EPA is going to kind of announce more details on that Clean School Bus program for you guys to access that $1 billion. It's kind of $1 billion, right? Yeah. 500 million for EV and then 500 million for alternatives. An EV could be in that number, but propane, CNG, other alternatives. So,
zero emissions, low emissions. So certainly when this podcast is hitting podcast land, scurry over to the EPA website, the Clean School Bus page, and check that out. We'll try to get a link up on our Google Calendar on stnonline.com, our events calendar. So, but yeah, definitely we'll be looking to see what they have to say about that. But we understand that funding will start flowing in April with a rebate program. I understand that there was talk about a competitive grant. We actually reported on this about a month ago or so, potentially in the fall. That's looking, from what I've heard from my sources, that is a little bit more on the back burner right now. So we'll see if that happens. But certainly this rebate that's coming up, it looks like the funding actually will start up a little bit later this year, with applications due later this summer. So a lot of conversation coming up at our STN Expo Indianapolis and Reno about this topic. Prime time for folks to attend and learn more so they can get going and start applying.
Yeah, I was going to say perfect timing for Green Bus Summit out at STN Expo in Reno, July 15th through the 20th. So guys, if you haven't signed up yet, we have that super early bird discount. You can save $300 on your registration up until April 15th. So that savings, lock that in. And then STN Expo Indianapolis, that's going to be June 3rd through the 7th. So we'll have another opportunity. If Indy's a little closer to you, you can head out there and grab some great information. We've got some great agenda items. I think, Ryan, you just updated the agenda too for Indy, correct?
Yeah, have some information up there. Still finalizing some things, but you can head over to stnexpo.com/east and check out the latest.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Ryan. And, guys, routing software is super important these days with all that driver shortage. You need those parent apps, driver apps. TransFinder's got it. They've got the TransFinder trifecta, the Route Finder Plus, Stop Finder, Wayfinder, 3 solutions that are working seamlessly together. Guys, you definitely need this stuff. TransFinder has that all-in-one solution for your department. They're the leader in everything they do in school transportation with more than 3 decades of experience working with 3,000 districts in North America. TransFinder has seen everything. They've built their solution around what their clients need and want, and sometimes never knew they even wanted. They get you, and they've got this. Email them at getplus@transfinder.com or give them a call at 800-373 3609. Also, guys, TransFinder has a webinar coming up on Thursday, March 24th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to touch on that, they've got some great information. You can sign up on their website at transfinder.com. All right, guys, excited to share our next conversation about cleaning your school buses properly. Can't forget about that. Really important these days with masks coming off. Everything is about keeping the buses clean. So we'll enjoy this conversation with Roger and Dr. Cooper. Super excited to have this next conversation. I know everybody thinks like COVID's over, maybe not, right? There's a lot of other things out there that can get us on the school bus. And I think these guys are going to kind of bring us back down to earth a little bit. It's our friends from CleanSpray USA. I've got Dr. Richard Cooper with us. Dr. Richard Cooper, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
And we also have Roger McElwrath with us as well, and he's a chief operations officer there at CleanSpray. And, wanted to bring these guys on because I want everybody to kind of really think about the amount of frequency that we were cleaning school buses when COVID hit. Everybody went nuts, right? There was panic buying. There was lots happening. And here we are almost 2 years later. And is behavior changing? And why shouldn't it be changing? So these are big concerns that I have. And I've talked to a lot of people about falling into the old habits. So I wanted to kind of get into it with you guys and talk a little bit about CleanSpray, what you do. Maybe toss the first question over to Dr. Richard Cooper. Dr. Cooper, what do you see as kind of still the issues that we face? Masks are coming off now. There's a lot of things on the school bus that you can't see. So what are we really dealing with long term here?
Tony, we're dealing with the things that we've always dealt with. We're still dealing with influenza, strep, staph, multi-drug resistant variants of these organisms have become even more prevalent during the past 2 years that we've been dealing with COVID. It's kind of caused everyone to turn a blind eye to some of these other pathogens. And the masks have been a good thing in preventing COVID, but they've also lowered our immune systems somewhat to some of the more common pathogens like cold and flu. And so continued cleaning is going to keep more kids in the seats, more drivers driving the buses, more kids in school.
Well, we know we have a bit of a driver shortage out there, so keeping drivers in the seats is very important. And schools get reimbursed if kids are in those seats as well. So these are all kind of financial elements to also consider as well with the frequency of cleaning. There's kind of a cause and effect for sure. And then, Roger, can you talk a little bit about, I know CleanSpray, you have more of an automated system versus the traditional system that a driver with just a squirt bottle going around the bus trying to wipe the seats down. It's not nearly as consistent. There's a lot of advantages to more of an automated system. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So what we've learned through studies in the field, being out talking with schools, driving up on transportation yards and meeting with directors and drivers, you're exactly right. A lot of them are walking around with spray bottles and rags and wiping down the buses, and there's a lot of issues with that. Number one, it's just not effective. It's just a surface disinfectant, and the manual cleaning process of hand wiping a school bus is just not effective. You can't physically cover every aspect of the bus and cover every single surface. In addition to that, you're not disinfecting the air, and that's where these respiratory viruses live, right? They're floating in the air, they're airborne. And so we've seen the need to disinfect both air and surfaces, and we've, as a company, figured out how to automate that. And Dr. Cooper has tested our system in an air chamber in our lab with various pathogens, and we've proven the ability as you precipitate a fine mist through the cabin of the vehicle, it covers all the surfaces and disinfects the air as it precipitates through the air. So, that's really the things that we've seen that are ineffective. And then, number two, some of the harmful chemicals that these schools are using. We see a lot of ammonium chlorides, ammonium dioxides. Dr. Cooper, chime in here if I'm missing something. Peroxides that are harmful to drivers, harmful to students, and harmful to the vehicles. And one of the other things we're seeing here is a vehicle shortage. And it's becoming more and more important to take care of these school buses because the ability to turn a school bus over and buy a new one every 7 to 10 years, you may be looking at 15 to 20 years now with the chassis shortage. Every bus manufacturer out there is short on vehicles. So that's what we've seen as a company, and that frankly is kind of what launched our company was to come in and provide something more effective, more efficient, eliminate human error, and eliminate labor, and create a safer environment for everybody, drivers, riders, and everyone involved. And hopefully that translates to more kids and seats in the classrooms and reduce absenteeism. We fully believe that if you can create a safer environment for the children to get to school, a healthier environment, then that ought to translate to a healthier environment in the classroom. And it starts with how they get to and from school.
Now, talk to me a little bit. I know you and I have spoken before, and you have quite a few new customers that have installed the CleanSpray system in their buses. Can you share maybe a couple customer success stories of recent?
Sure. The one that comes to mind immediately is DeKalb County schools in Alabama. Keith, actually, there's the transportation director. He's very forward thinking and saw the opportunity. And just to kind of make a long story short, they installed our systems in their entire fleet I think we finished the installation in late September, early October. Since then, the number he's able to put on it is he's seen an 82% reduction in drivers calling in, and he's also seen an increase in recruitment. The student standpoint, we're still trying to collect data on that, but they fully feel that they're creating a better environment, and they're seeing results. And they've got happy drivers. The drivers are no longer walking around with spray bottles. They simply push a button and walk away and come back to a nice disinfected vehicle. It's clean and ready to go.
Dr. Cooper, did you guys actually study DeKalb County and look at kind of what the kind of the base was versus before and after? Was there kind of any measurement that you had done?
We've done those measurements, Tony, not specifically at DeKalb County, but we have done those on buses with DART, Dallas Area Transit, and we did before and after tests with the spray system that we'd installed on killing 4 different pathogens, and we've shown that it is very effective.
Excellent. Yeah, with kids, you know, coughing, sneezing, masks come off. I'm sure there's some anxiety there that probably exists for the drivers as well. And I know school-age children, parents may have decided not to vaccinate them. Some are, some aren't. People fell different areas of the spectrum on this. So, I think it's a very intense conversation to have sometimes with parents. And I'd rather just have a clean, safe bus and try to avoid that conversation and do everything you can as a transportation professional to know that you're putting the best technology on your fleet to be able to kind of address these issues. So, Roger, what would be a good next step for someone to find out a little more about CleanSpray? Could they do a demo? Could they pilot a program? Like, what does that look like?
So we've got several pilot programs working right now. We have put demonstration units, we call them, in various markets for them to test. You mentioned Cypress Fairbanks. Everybody knows Kane Smith, and he's in the process of testing on his fleet. They're very happy with the results from a driver standpoint. The drivers absolutely love it. So for somebody who wants to do that, we've got a couple of options. We have our demo trailer, which you guys have seen. We can come to them personally, show up on their yard with our trailer and then show them a live demonstration. If it's someone who's really interested, we can have discussions about possibly putting in a test unit for them.
Wonderful. And how do they get in touch with you?
They can reach us directly at me personally at roger@cleansprayusa.com or through our website, cleansprayusa.com. Or you can just call my cell phone. Very easy, 940-300-5215.
You want to say that one more time for the audience?
Sure, 940-300-5215.
Hey guys, thanks so much for coming on, sharing a little bit. Dr. Richard Cooper, appreciate you being here. Roger, thank you so much as well. And we appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us, Tony.
All right, coming up next is Taylor Hannon. She's talking with Paradise Unified School District. Exciting conversation there. Talk about some school bus heroes.
All right. Hello, nation. Good to be back for another episode. And this time I have two amazing guests with me. So not one, but we have two guests this week. So I'm very excited to introduce them. I have Chris Rinesmith. She's the school bus driver trainer for Paradise Unified School District. And then I have Sherry Barnes, who's a school bus driver for Paradise as well. So hello, guys. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we have a great conversation planned for you guys today. So a little bit of background, Paradise USD was involved in the Camp Fire in 2018. And so they're kind of in this rebuilding process now, kind of looking at like what that looks like, how technology is helping them, and, you know, what the future kind of holds for the school district. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, I know you were in Paradise when the Camp Fire broke out. Can you kind of talk about that impact on the community? What was kind of going on? What were your feelings?
Well, the morning of the Camp Fire, you know, there was this big plume of smoke that was lingering. And, you know, we've had fires before in the area, and we were just kind of used to it never being a problem. It never impacted Paradise the way the Camp Fire did. And so, you know, we were out doing our morning routes, and before you knew it, this fire that was fueled by wind coming towards us just came across our community. And you know, we were driving our routes, and we had to get our kids to safe situations, and it was pretty hard. Some of the kids had already been dropped off, and some of the kids needed to be dropped off at different locations, and you know, it was quite a scramble to get all the kids evacuated safely off the ridge. It was we've spent several hours in the driver's seat, some more than others, but all the kids made it out safely. We can say that.
Not all the buses, right?
Yeah, we lost some buses in the process. We lost several buses that had burned, but everybody, all the drivers and all the kids made it out safely.
Well, that's important. You know, the safety of kids, the safety of your drivers, that's number one. And I know the Camp Fire was the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California's history. So kind of speaking on that, how were school buses? And you kind of talked about the evacuation of the students, but were there any community evacuations? You know, how did you guys help with that?
Yes, school buses are used for, you know, emergency situations. And so there were buses that had civilians and even animals on the bus. And we did our best to evacuate everybody who needed a ride, that requested a ride, or the driver was told to give them a ride, you know, out of harm's way the best that we could. There was a certain point where one of the drivers had to evacuate their big bus, and they got the civilians and everybody off the bus. Then they had to drive the bus off the road into a ditch to get it out of the way of the emergency vehicles and other motorists. And it was pretty traumatic because as a driver, you know, we're never just getting passengers off the bus in the midst of a situation, but at that point, there were power lines down on the road and cars burning.
Trees falling.
It was just a real disaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, of course, 2 years later, right, the pandemic hit. So How is Paradise now rebuilding? You know, how's your student enrollment looking? And were there any lessons or takeaways that you guys picked up from the evacuation that you have implemented now into training? I realize that was a big question, but...
So I'll do my best to hit a few of those points. So before the Camp Fire, our district had around 3,600 students enrolled. And now currently we have 1,505 students approximately. And so we're at 44% of our pre-Camp Fire enrollment. So, you know, our town is recovering and there's new houses and businesses opening up. And we have 163 students that are actually living away from the Ridge, the Paradise area right now. And about half of them ride school buses to Paradise. So we're still providing that service to get the kids back to their familiar school setting, which is very important. About 89% of our enrolled students live on the Ridge.
Which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about those students that live off the Ridge, what does transporting them look like? Has it put more stress on transportation? Are you guys using school buses, or are you using, alternative modes of transportation?
Well, for the most part, they're riding on school buses. We do have a few white vans that, we could use. We've used them for a few of the students. As you know, in the bus driver industry, we're always short school bus drivers. And so, sometimes we need to rely on district employees to drive the white vans, and that does help. But for the most part, everybody's being transported in a school bus, and we're just spread thin, and we're all doing the best we can. And of course, with the Camp Fire impact, we lost 5 or 6 school bus drivers that moved out of the area by necessity, and many out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your training, have you included anything, being a school bus driver trainer, about evacuations now, or what to do in an emergency?
Well, we haven't really modified things. We haven't had that discussion. My personal feeling is there may be a need to have face masks in case there was another fire situation. I think that could have helped, is having some face masks. Of course, we've been supplying face masks for, the last year and a half over this pandemic. So we do have those organically. And the other thing is water. I thought it would be a good idea, and it's my personal feeling, is if everybody had a supply of water under the bus or secured inside the bus. I mean, what could it hurt to have some water handy in case there was an emergency?
Yeah.
But that's just my personal thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. Having like a little backpack with the necessities, essentially water, like granola bars.
Sure.
I know we have them at our office. We each have our own little backpack, has like an extra pair of shoes, just in case something were to happen, you can grab that and get out.
Great idea.
Yeah. We've improved the radio systems, and we're trying to get the best radio systems for communication, because communication was a bit of a struggle the day of the fire. So that's in process, and it's always improving.
Okay, that's good. So coming out of the campfire, let's switch to Sherry now. All these people were relocating. You said you lost 5 or 6 school bus drivers, just to relocation. So Sherry actually decided to change careers and stay and help with the rebuild of Paradise. So
yes,
why did being a school bus driver during this time kind of interest you?
My career before this career, I worked with families with special needs kids. And so I really believe in families, and I know the struggles of parents. And so I wanted to stay and help rebuild Paradise. And I thought that would be a wonderful way to help the families that are here. And so I help the kids on the bus, with whatever the stories they want to tell. And I teach them how to, like, social skills on the bus. And I also incorporate the parents. I make rapport with the parents so that we can support the kids better on the bus and school. Because really, that's the beginning of the school day, is, get on the school bus. And so that's how I'm helping. That's how I'm helping my community grow.
You joined in 2019, I believe. So how did your daily job functions change when the pandemic hit?
Well, the kids were not going to school at the time, and we did a program called Meals on Yellow Wheels. And some of the bus drivers and I, we would go to the kitchens at the schools and pack lunches and food, snacks, and vegetables and fruit and stuff like that for the kids. And then we'd meet in different destinations, and the parents would come and get food for 3 days or the week or whatever it may be. And that was really helpful. And it was nice for the kids to see their school bus drivers and the parents to meet us if their, kids hadn't ridden before. And so that's one of the things that we did that helped the families that were still here. It was a hard time. And they're really happy to have that.
Yeah, it helped us all too, because, we kept our employment, and that was valuable also.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's great. And I know you guys said it was like 15,000 meals that you delivered during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so definitely a big chunk there. And that interaction that you said, being able to see the kids, see their faces, I'm sure that went a long way.
So like I'd always say, I can't wait to see you. When school starts, I'm excited. Mm-hmm. And it just gives them hope. And they like, okay, we're going to get through this.
So coming out of the pandemic and the campfire, Sherry was nominated by Chris for the Bus Guardian Hero Award. So we have a couple articles online talking about that. The award was presented by Calif, and that's actually one of the sponsors of this episode. So here's a tech tip from them. In 2020, Calif Synovia Solutions introduced Bus Guardian to help school districts keep kids and bus drivers safe amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Bus Guardian provides contact tracing reports that enable school districts to take action if a positive case is reported by a student or driver. And hygiene verification reports help track school bus sanitation efforts. The Bus Guardian bundle includes student ridership, pre- and post-trip inspection, time and attendance, and core GPS tracking to deliver reliable information that districts need to keep children and staff safe. To learn more, visit busguardian.com/STN. That's busguardian.com/STN. Okay, so back to the Bus Guardian Hero Award. There's actually been 2 recipients of it, and Sherry here is one of them with us.
Yep, thank you.
What did winning that award mean to you?
I was pretty honored. I mean, it's a really big honor. It's just fairly exciting. I mean, it's exciting that my trainer nominated me. I mean, of all people, that's pretty big, so I really like that a lot. And they interviewed my supervisor, they interviewed Chris, and they interviewed me, and then they actually chose me. So I thought that was really nice as well. So it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, do you want to jump in for a second and share kind of what stood out to you about Sherry?
Yeah, well, every year I ride with all of the drivers in our department, and that's part of my job as a trainer is to evaluate them and report back to the director. And so I'd ridden with, quite a few of the drivers, and when I was riding with Sherry, I just noticed how detail oriented she was with the kids, and the positive affirmations and the positive talk and the rapport. It went on and on and on. I mean, even little details like, I'm not going to open the door until they look this way from their doorstep, and then I'm going to open the door because that, I'm not sure what her reasoning is, but, then it's like a magnet. I imagine they're pulled to the bus. It's welcoming. And anyway, just the little details and how the kids just were being made to feel good about themselves and looking at things with different perspectives with a lot of positive energy. And I just thought that was really good. And I felt so strongly about that when the contest came along and I nominated her. I just, reported what I felt, and it just went on from there. And she was selected.
Well, that's awesome. And I know for our listeners, hearing these 2 talk and hearing Sherry, I'm sure we can all agree that it was a well-deserved recognition, something that she clearly stands out for being a school bus driver. And so it's great to be able to talk to you both and share that
Thank you.
So, speaking of these two amazing women on the podcast with us, it is Women's History Month, with it being March and everything. Yeah. So, let's kind of wrap up and talk to these women about what it means to be a woman in transportation to them. Let's see, who do I want to start with? Sherry.
Well, like I said before, I mean, I think it's just very beneficial for the community, the families in the community, for me to be in transportation. And I think it's just very giving. Like, I teach a lot in that small period of time with the kids, and I just enjoy it. I feel I'm a good fit, and I just really enjoy it. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. What about you, Chris?
Okay. Well, I started 3 decades ago, and I felt like there were more men in our department at that point, and they were like older trucker type guys. And I just kind of felt like, I don't know, I was younger, of course, and there were so many hoops to jump through to get your school bus certificate. And I just remember finally achieving it and feeling so empowered as a woman in what seemed like a male-dominated department and occupation. And, I've just truly enjoyed it. And I think, men and women can be very nurturing, and women can do the job driving commercially just as well as a man.
Absolutely.
Amen. And I believe your director is also a woman as well.
Yes, she is.
So definitely some leadership roles occupied by women at your guys' district, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys. I know Sherry's got to get out and drive her route coming up here shortly, but it's been great. I appreciate you guys being on the podcast.
Can I add one more thing? We now have more women in our department driving school buses than we do men.
Woo! I think that is great.
15 years, but we're now dominating.
Hey, that is a great ending to this podcast. Let's give it up to the women in transportation.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, guys, we got a long list of people to thank this episode. Sherry, Chris, Ryan, thank you so much for a great conversation. Taylor Hannon, unbelievable interview. Appreciate you as well. Roger and Dr. Cooper from CleanSpray Technologies, thank you as well for sharing a little more about cleaning your school buses properly. And always special thanks to TransFinder, CleanSpray Technologies, and Synovia Solutions for sponsoring this episode. We couldn't do it without you guys. Hey, don't forget, visit stnonline.com to learn more about everything in the school transportation industry that's affecting you. Latest news, topics, editorials, blogs, we've got it all. Be sure and head over to the website to get all that information that you need and want. Also visit stnexpo.com for all the upcoming conferences we have. STN Expo Indianapolis, STN Expo in Reno, plus our Green Bus Summit. Don't forget, we also have that Transportation Director Summit. If you're a transportation director, it is free for you to go. That is a special event curated just for leaders, and we'd love for you to sign up. It's an extra benefit you get for coming to STN Expo, so be sure and check that out. And also, we have our Transporting Students with Disabilities and Special Needs Conference down in Dallas, Texas in the fall, November 8th through the 12th. So be sure and check that out as well. tsdconference.com. Nation, we love you. Appreciate you being with us this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.